Before this video begins, I want to let you guys know about my social media. It's an easy way for me to get stuff out about the new projects I'm working on, as well as where I've vanished for the 10th time this week. So my handles are on screen as follows, and also in the description below. One last thing, before we really dive into the 5th installment of one of my favorite horror franchises, is subscribe. Only a small portion of you viewing are subscribed. It's free, and I promise you won't get any annoying ass emails. Alright, with all this out of the way, let's dive into Scream 5, or better known as Scream 2022. As many of you may know, I am a huge fan of the original Scream, and not the biggest fan of its sequels they had produced. After rewatch before seeing this film, a lot of my opinions have changed, but that is for an entirely different video. With the announcement of the 5th movie, I got really hyped for it, more than No Way Home or Endgame, which is saying a lot, as Spider-Man and, well, The Fourth Avengers was everyone's most hyped movie of 2019. Originally, it was announced in early 2020, and it would be some time before I was able to sit my butt in those cinema chairs. To say this movie did not live up to the hype would be a lie. Of course, I had my reservations to the history of the sequels in the series, but I had to hold out hope. The characters throughout, new and old, are great. Revisiting Sid after a decade after we last saw her happy and living prosperous life was good to see. And no, that is not a spoiler, because we see a baby stroller in the trailer, so you can fuck right off. Sid is finally prepared to kill this Ghostface fucker once and for all in this film, being locked and loaded from the start of the massacre. Gail, while being bitchy, is more developed. You can really sense that she's turned the corner from being a ruthless reporter that she was in the first movie to a friend of Sydney's, and really sticks out as a member of this franchise very prominently in this movie. Dewey returns in probably his best role yet. He's not exactly in the action role I originally thought he would be in, but acting as a drunk mentor figure in a lot of media, which adds a lot of depth to what has happened to these characters in the last decade. Through Dewey, we get a lot of subtle and deep cuts to what has happened to these characters since the Jill and Charlie murders. I like the fact that Sydney hasn't heard from Dewey in a long time, and that he chooses to text Gail after a parent split. And even the person far, she doesn't even know he was forced to step down from his position at the police department. Well, we didn't get the full details of what had happened between the two. The filmmakers knew that we didn't need to be told. It would drag the movie to a halt and tell a half-baked background. But instead, it pushes forward the story with small bits of interaction. How these characters interact tell us a lot. Sam, our new final girl of this film, is fantastic. When we get into the spoiler section, I'll get more in depth, but simply she's a standout. Emotionally, physically, and overall fills Sydney's shoes if she were ever to take that role in future films. Which is something I was really happy for. As much as I love Sydney, her taking a backseat and remaining as a support role is fantastic and does not diminish or forget about her in the slightest. Tara, Jenny Ortega's character, feels weird. She fits this innocent victim role, but does not give her much to do, even though Ortega has been shown that she can carry scenes or even whole movies on her own. She feels like an obstacle that's always being thrown in the way rather than being a self-sufficient character. At one point, Ghostface gloats to Sam, who is Tara's sister, that Tara is basically their pincushion, and Ortega gets her time to shine towards the end. The new additions to the cast are interesting to say the least, as there's some that honestly I forgot about right after leaving the theater, while some I fell in love with instantly. Jack Quaid's character is the most adorable type, but isn't much more than the boyfriend that has no backing to his character. Dylan Minnette from 13 Reasons Why fame does what he has to do, but seems unable to add anything besides breaking even to the film. Jasmine Savoy Brown and Mason Gooding play twins, and they are the niece and nephew to Randy Meeks, who we saw in the first two movies, and we saw their mother, which was his sister in the third film. Honestly, besides Sam, these are my two favorite additions to the film. They're funny, relatable, and carrying the torch of Randy in a sentimental way without being weighed down by it. They fully are their own characters who could be ripped away from the relation to their legacy characters without be it with some songs connected, but it could easily be done with some line corrections and become their own fully fledged characters. Brown's performance, most specifically, gives an amazing LGBTQ representation that's always been hinted at, but never fully indulged in these films at least. It does it in a way where it's not a label slapped on it and calling it a day like some media tends to do. It being a fully fledged part of the character as well as adding some depth to the character as well. Sonia Ben-Amar's character is forgettable. Honestly, I had to look at her for a good second to remember who she plays. Well, I hope she continues to act and everything I just couldn't help but to cringe. Light spoilers so I can explain myself a little bit better. There's a moment where she's talking to Savoy Brown's character after she's being accused of being the killer, where she has this weird line delivery. I don't know, it just feels weird watching it, and like she's trying too hard to come off as menacing or as a red herring, and I'm sitting here just thinking like she's no threat to any one of the other characters. Maggie Madison, who was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as one of the Manson family members, feels like she's missing an important piece to her character. Maybe I missed something, but something feels like it's missing when it comes to her character of script here. But watching her play that character, there's this point in time where it does feel like she's lesbian for Jenny Ortega's character Tara, but also gives the fact that she's jealous of Tara. I don't know if I'm reading too much into it or I'm just seeing something that maybe some people didn't see. Odd to place it there and not fully indulge it or like explore that role into it. Okay, I want to get into the plot, but I really don't feel like I can do it service without getting into spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, follow this time club where I sum up how I feel about the movie, or don't. I don't make your choices. I'm just saying I warned you. Okay, with that out of the way, here we go. So this movie starts off with our famous female intro sequence, as always, with Jenny Ortega shown prominently in the trailer. The thing is that Ortega lives. I believe this is the only time someone survives that sequence besides Casey Becker's parents, which, I mean, duh, because they weren't the victim in that situation. It feels like an odd choice to make, but like Ortega could have been in this scene and not been the first attack and had the same impact. Just make her like the second attack. I don't know, that's just my only gripe with this intro sequence. It's brutal, it is shot excellently, and as I said in the trailer reaction video, the Ghostface costume looks amazing. The cloak is more black than a smoke black that comes off of some in the movies. The mask looks more like prominent features compared to the others, with slight changes to the mask prior, or it's just excellent shot where it gives us a nice clean look, unlike other films where it looks like they just smudge Vaseline over the lens. After tech, we meet Sam, who's Ortega's sister. Sam is revealed later on to be Billy Loomis' child. And I'm not trying to be... I don't know if those timelines match up perfectly because I believe they allude to Sam being like 18 to 20, while I believe this is set in 2021, which is set 25 years after Billy has already been dead. But anyway, they play with that idea of her psychosis being that of Billy and that she could easily become her father, and all of this is just her having a mental break where she is suffering with some kind of genetic mental illness. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I'm going to notice Billy Loomis, which is super interesting to go off a little bit of the James Carpenter, which is a reference to John Carpenter, the director of The Thing and Halloween, most notably. After Billy's last name was already used in Carpenter's creation, Sam Loomis, which is also going back to Psycho. Horror is a really incestuous genre. It's really weird sometimes. Just hopefully that made sense. I'll make a diagram. Anyway, we meet Tara's friends who try to suss out each other as much as possible, where we find out Deputy Judy is now the sheriff, and the Madame Minette's character. Again, I don't know if those timelines match due to Scream 4 taking place about a decade prior, and Minette's character is like 16 to 18, and there's never a mention to her having a child or even a relationship at that point in time. Moving on, forgive me if I misplaced certain events. I'm writing this in the morning after and recording this much later. Sam goes and tells her sister that her dad is actually Billy Loomis. Ortega's dad isn't, just so I should clarify. And eventually, we wind up meeting Dewey, was to survive Stab, the fictional movie franchise prominent in the series. But these are not the rules for the movie. Also, like he says, always suspect the boyfriend or the love interest first. When, like, one Ghostface has been a love interest, and no, I don't count Charlie since Kirby's not the main character in that movie. Also, I figure I should mention Jack Quaid's character is Sam's boyfriend. That's kind of just dawdling around at this point. Continuing on, Sam gathers Tara's friends to tell them that she's in fact the daughter of Billy. This is where we get the rules for this requel, as they put it. Basically, everything comes back to the first movie, which is a funny case because Brown's character is explaining this when, you know, your mom was introduced in the third movie, but nevertheless. After this, we get an attack on Judy and Minette's characters named Wes, after Wes Craven's the director of the first 4 movies, where Judy gets kind of cheap shotted where she attempts to leave her son. But this is a daylight kill, which I don't think we've ever gotten in this series. It is brutal, and the perfect amount of gore is used. Ghostface eventually enters the home, where he promptly murders Wes through the neck more of a stab motion than a slip, which makes for this amazing shot. It kind of looks a little bit goofy, but it's still impressively done. In the aftermath, we see the deputy that has been in charge of protecting Tara has left his position at the hospital to attend the scene. I might be misplacing the scene, but holy fuck. Dead Meat, my favorite YouTube channel at the moment, shows up as his two interviewers shooting over the metallic flamethrower Ghostface from Stab 8, which I fucking love it. This is where we get the prominent scene that's all in the trailers, which I do want to say is excellently lit. Basically, Ghostface has come here to finish Tara and has cut the power to the area. When Tara gets out of bed to investigate, Quaid's character pops up and is attacked by Ghostface. The advantage to try to escape, but is too injured to manage. Ghostface gives the proposition to Sam over the phone as we see them push the voice modulator, which is a nice touch, which we have never been shown before. That's what this movie shows a lot of. They show a lot of the little things that we never see in any of the other movies. I think that's just a point for this movie being made at current times. Anyways, the proposition is they would kill Tara or Richie, which is Quaid's character's name. She stalls for time for Dewey to tussle and shoot Ghostface where they are incapacitated. Of course, everyone leaves besides Dewey as he realizes he's got to double tap to finish this motherfucker. This is really the saddest scene of all. Caught off guard, Dewey is stabbed in the gut in the back while Ghostface was double wielding knives, which is kind of cool, not gonna lie. And a ton of blood just spills out of him, marking the end of Dewey in his movies. Which, yeah, never the killing in these movies. That's been a popular theory that Dewey is a killer in all these movies, since usually it's our first thought when we walk into one of these movies, but he's not in any of them, as we know. This is where Sidney and Gale fully enter the movie. Like I said before, Sid is a supporting character and does great in the position. Eventually, we wind back at Stu Macher's place, now owned by Tara's best friend, where she had a spare inhaler. A lot happens here, so forgive me again if I skip over some things. Gooding, the other twin, is making out with his girlfriend at this memorial party thing where she has to go upstairs for some fun, which declines the possibility of being Ghostface, where she promptly gets offended and storms off. Seen really well too, where he understands her feelings and reactions rather than doing the annoying boyfriend thing where he just dismisses her and says, "Oh, it's not a big deal, babe." But he actually is like, "Yeah, that's a proper reaction to think that I think you're a killer." I mean, that's just me, but I thought that was a nice touch. After this, he tries to apologize where they play this cat and mouse game with their GPS trackers, which was mentioned briefly in their first scene. Of course, this is the ruse where Ghostface is the one to do this. I honestly thought he had died in this scene, but he survives as we see him in the ambulance at the end of the film. After this, we get a scene between Madison and Brown in the basement discussing how to deal with creepy basements in horror movies, which I enjoy and actually they have some fun with. Brown reveals that she's Ghostface after Madison alludes to it, but Brown was only joking. Brown shares a scene with Amar that I previously mentioned that was kind of cringy. And there's a point in that scene where Amar is not facing the camera. And I was waiting for like a real blood or a knife or something. But nope, we just get that cringy scene, like I said before. Brown is later attacked and Sam finds her bleeding out of her shoulder immensely, which again, I thought she had died. But no, just kind of out of the movie at that point. I'm going to end up skipping a lot here just because a lot of the scenes and events happen very close together and I don't want to screw up the timeline. After Brown is found, everyone gets sus of Madison where she says, "Fuck it," and pops Amar, taking the worst character out of the movie. Thank you. Sidney and Gale show up shortly after where Madison is doing the, "Oh me, I've been stabbed," where Sid and Gale aren't tricked anymore after they've through this 4 times now. And Madison drops it super quickly, which is kind of bothersome. You're idolizing Stu Macher and Billy Lewis, just fucking sell it. Billy went down a fucking flight of stairs for that shit and Stu took a knife to the gut. Just, how can you not sell it? Madison shoots Gale, where she's kind of out for the rest of the movie, but kind of like in it. She's playing this like half in, half out. Sidney ends up shooting Quaid in the knee through a door, which is kind of hilarious, and Madison, as Ghostface attacks, flipping over the balcony to the hall below, where Quaid's character is revealed to be the second Ghostface. Honestly, I called these two out from a mile away, so it wasn't very surprised, but that doesn't make it bad or anything. It just kind of feels anticlimactic. The two try to set up the original kitchen scene, saying that the fandom is not toxic and we're going to make our own movie because the 8th Stab movie sucked, which I know they're referencing Last Jedi, which we don't need to be referencing right now. Please, for the love of God, why are we referencing a movie that's perfectly fine? I get we're talking like toxic fandom, but that should not be the point of this movie. Also, the motive feels a little too bare bones to be a good motive, unlike, I don't know, half the fucking people actually have good motives in this franchise. Some moments where Sam, Gale, and Sydney are all teaming together after dealing with this bullshit for 25 years, murking these two like it's nobody's business. That fire stunt in the trailer is Madison's Ghostface and it is glorious. I love a good fire stunt. Quaid ends up dealing with Sam, and Sam ends up seeing her dad once again and completely brutalizes Quaid. Where honestly, I got some stressed out when watching that scene. This is where we see Sid warn Sam that they always come back, where Sam shoots Quaid another like 4 times, and was like, if they was gonna come back, they ain't mortal, honey. Like, seriously, he was dead. You don't need to shoot him anymore. Ends up Madison is still alive and is promptly put down. Overall, the 5th installment on this quarter-century franchise is the best follow-up it has had. This movie is brilliantly shot and lit. A little that I did not like, the film easily becomes one of my favorite Scream movies outside of the original. If you have reservations, please go see this film. In every way, this could easily be the best film of January, and you wouldn't be surprised at the end of the year it makes my top 10 or higher. This film makes me giddy with almost every frame, and is beautifully shot and made. It came out of a lot of love from these directors, and honestly, we might not get another Scream because they originally didn't make this a trilogy movie. They made it to be a good movie, which this is how you should make movies. And I've said a lot more on my Twitter about how I felt about this movie. So again, go check that out, like I said before. But it manages to become a good movie without outshining the original or disrespecting the original like so many other requels and other sequel movies have done in the past. And I have to commend it for that. It's hard to go to a franchise that has only ever been directed by one man and written by only 2 different people, and I guess Williamson came back for this movie. I'm not completely sure about that. So take that with a grain of salt. It's hard to step into the role of one man's giant shoes after he already did Nightmare on Elm Street, which is a classic, and then directed 4 of these movies over the last 20-something years, and then you gotta step in and make a movie that he would love and also the fans would feel okay with. And they did that perfectly. I've seen very little of this movie being hated on, and it's amazing to see. Horror often gets pushed to the side as kind of like, oh, it's not that scary, so it's not a good movie, which is dumb, because good horror movies, as they mentioned in the movie, can be great movies. The Babadook, Midsommar, Hereditary, those are all great horror movies that also have something else to say. And I believe that this movie tells us that gorgeously and beautifully. It's just super well done. And I have to commend them for that. But thank you guys for watching. I am the Bad Duck, and you are the internet. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you for watching. I am the Bad Duck, and you are the internet. And before you guys leave, maybe consider subscribing, or check out this new video I put out, or even check out this video that YouTube wants you to watch.